Hello, my friends. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a good day. Um, we finished thinking about reading and writing practices, and you got to read some articles, and we're moving forward onto a section called Reflecting on Your Own Literacy. And we're hoping that those articles help to give you some ideas about literacy and reading and writing practices. But now we're moving away from what other people think and we're asking you what you think. And this is one of the most important practices that we have is a reflection upon the things that we read and what we do. So we want you to reflect upon your reading and writing practices. And I want to give you some parameters of this that I think may help you and actually open up this discussion in some interesting ways. So I think our first instinct is to think about our reading and writing practices inside of school. And that's good, and we should think about that. Like, how do we use reading and writing in school? How does it work? What are our memories of that? How do we utilize that? But then I also want you to think about your reading and writing practices outside of school. So I'd like to open this up and to think about it in more broader terms. And I'm not just talking about a novel, so that's great if you like to read. I was just at Barnes & Noble yesterday with my mom, and we were looking around, and I wrote down a couple novels that I want to order and read, and I'm a reader, and English people usually are, and that's kind of normal. And then there's a whole bunch of the rest of the world that's like, yeah, I don't really like that reading thing. And that's okay too, but you're still reading all the time. I have this other story when I worked at Capitol Records. I worked in human resources, and all I did was write. And so a lot of times at Chico, when I first started here, I would teach English 130, which is academic writing, and it was a business link course. And my students would say crazy things, and they'd say things like, "Oh, I'm a business major. I'm never going to need to write." And I would laugh because I'm like, yeah. The reason why I was vice president of human resources is because I could read and write well. And if you're going to do business, you're going to have to be able to do it. So funny things that we get in our head, right? But we're constantly reading and writing. So I want you to think about more than just the standard ways. So maybe you want to think about it from social media terms. Do you tweet? Do you use Facebook? Do you Snapchat? Where do you write? Do you create memes? What are your writing practices? I know some people, a lot of my students write fan fiction. So how do you use writing in less standard ways? Another story about students and how things work is I know a lot of students who wanted to maybe be a policeman, and the number one reason why people don't get hired or they fail out of the police academy is because they can't write, because they have to write tickets and they have to write reports. And so, but what are your writing practices? How do you write? Do you write for fun? How do you use writing? And then reading practices, same kind of questions. So maybe we read a novel, but maybe you read a cookbook. Maybe you like to cook, and you use recipes as a way to, you read a recipe in order to cook or to bake, or maybe you garden. I love to garden. I'm out in my yard all the time, and so I was actually looking up last night on the internet about crepe myrtles because they're different. I have a tree, and then I have a one trunk bush, and then I have bushes with multi-trunks in the back, and they're all different colors. And I was reading about the different varieties of trees and crepe myrtle trees. And so, are you interested in gardening? Maybe you're a mechanic. What are you doing what are your reading, writing practices? What are you looking up? So it could be leisure, it could be school. There's a lot of ways to think about it, and I want you to feel free and open to think about your practices in a broader sense. There are a whole bunch of guiding questions at the bottom of this page that will help you to think about these practices. but I don't want you to be limited by those guiding questions. They're not intended for you to go down and answer them like a list. They're there to help you to come up with ideas and ways to address your reflection on your own literacy. But it's very personal, right? And we tend to read and pay attention to things that somehow are embedded into our daily lives, or things that we're super interested in. And those things can change over time. Sometimes there's seasons in our lives where we're really interested in a topic and we learn a lot about it. And then there's other seasons where that's not interesting anymore and we move past that. So I want you to think about this idea of your reflecting on your own literacy, going back, of course, to the calendar. It says, the notes here say, write a reflection on your own reading or writing in your group discussion forum called Reflect on Your Own Literacy. So I always get weird questions. They're not weird. They're super good questions, but I like to think they're weird. Can I use I? Well, it's a reflection on your literacy. So it would be really weird to talk about yourself in third person. But if that's how you like to talk about yourself, I guess you could use third person. But I'm expecting most of you to talk with I, right? So I like to read, and what would that thing be? And I use writing in these ways. So, okay. I think that gives you a little bit of ideas to start with. And your reflection is due Friday, August 2nd. And I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Everything should be in on the due date by midnight. Okay, I'll talk with you soon. Have a good day. Bye.